This Week in Connecticut with Dennis House starts now.
Welcome to This Week in Connecticut. Greetings, everyone. I'm Dennis House. This morning, we will meet the new Republican leader in our state, Senator Stephen Harding. Why the shakeup? What does he want to do? And is he for Trump or Haley? Then the tipping craze. Do you have to tip at fast food restaurants and stores when the cashier shows you a screen asking for a tip? We'll ask manners expert Michelle Oracoli. Plus, a star on the UConn men's basketball team making a slam dunk at his alma mater. His message, stick with your dreams. And a special moment for one of Connecticut's best high school basketball players. But first up on This Week, the lead. A new Republican leader at the state capitol. What is the future of his party that's been out of power for a long time? And with us now is the new Senate Minority Leader, Senator Stephen Harding. And Senator Harding, good to see you on the program.
Good to see you as well. Thank you for having me here. It's great to be here.
So you're relatively new to the legislature, but a lot of people want to know who you are. So in a nutshell, give us a little description of yourself and your background.
Yep. So I was a state representative before I was a state senator. So I'm new to certainly new to the state Senate. Before that, I was elected in 2015 to the state House. Served in that role until 2022 when I was elected to the state Senate. I am a father to two, 5 and 3-year-olds. It's a very busy house going on.
That's a busy household.
And coach baseball and all those great things with kids. And I'm a lawyer by trade.
Excellent. All right. Now, you are the new Senate Minority Leader. What was wrong with the former one, Kevin Kelly? Why did he have to go in your judgment?
So absolutely nothing wrong. It was more of a collaboration with the caucus and Kevin himself. Kevin felt it was the right time, and the caucus felt it was the right time as well. And it was a very amicable passing of the torch, essentially, and my election to leader. So there was certainly no animosity between Kevin and myself. We're working well together. We're hoping to continue to work together in leadership. I just have a different name capacity in my role, and he does as well. But certainly nothing wrong. Kevin's done a great job advancing the caucus of my caucus.
So rumors and talk that he was forced out, is that not correct?
It was much more amicable, I think, than people may read in certain reports. It was much more of a collaboration, a collaborative effort of the caucus.
How are your political philosophies different?
Our political philosophies are really not much different. We are common sense Republicans, both Kevin and myself. And so I think, in terms of myself and working with the caucus, it's going to be a collaboration of all the ideologies that we have within the caucus. I believe in a big tent Republican Party. I think Kevin did as well. And it's taking the different senators that we have throughout the different districts, collaborating their plans for the state of Connecticut, and ultimately crafting into a message as we move into this next session.
How would you characterize yourself? Moderate, conservative?
I think that I'm a common sense Republican. That's probably the best way to put it. I believe in common sense policies. I think that, you look at what happened with the EV mandate, and that was being pushed by the majority party. And I think it was a common sense conservative Republican principle to ask the questions that needed to be asked in regarding to that policy moving forward, and whether or not that was actually a good policy or practical policy for the state of Connecticut. And I think if you look at the platform of both of our caucuses, House and Senate, for the Republican Party, it ultimately comes down to common sense.
Is there a national Republican or perhaps a former Connecticut Republican you might be able to compare yourself to, so people can put it into perspective?
Yeah, I mean, on a national level, my hero politically was John McCain. It was somebody that I admired greatly for his service to this country and for what he believed in and his political ideologies. On a state level, when I first got elected to House, Themis Claridis was there. I certainly admired her work, and her predecessor, Larry Cafaro, was somebody that I followed, and I really looked to emulate him in his leadership role as well.
Let's talk about what are some of the things you want to accomplish in this session, because Republicans are obviously in the minority, but they can be loud.
Absolutely. No, I mean, one of the things that we can work with the governor on, as you know, Dennis, the governor has been talking about, is maintaining those fiscal guardrails. There has been an effort on the part of the majority, many in the majority, to take away those fiscal guardrails. I think ultimately that's what has left us with the $4 billion reserves. It has what left us with some of the biggest long-term debt obligation payments we've ever made. So those fiscal guardrails need to remain in place for the fiscal health of our state. The Republican Party, the Senate Republican caucus, strongly believes in that. We can work with the governor to make that possible.
In your opinion, what are some of the things that the governor has proposed that you would oppose and you'd like to see done differently?
Well, I mean, one of the things I just mentioned earlier was, again, that EV mandate. So even though they were not successful, the governor and the commissioner, in pushing that forward as a regulation, that is going to probably be pushed forward by the majority as a as legislation this session. There are so many questions that have zero answers to in regards to this EV mandate. And I'm very positive that with the House and the Senate caucuses coming together on that policy with a unified message, we can once again stop that from becoming law as we stopped it from becoming a regulation this past fall.
Last time we had George Logan on this program, who was running for Congress in the 5th District. He said that he didn't believe that Donald Trump should be running again. How do you feel about that?
Well,
do you support Donald Trump?
Well, ultimately, I'm going to be supporting who the Republican nominee is going to be. You know, with that said, I think the important thing for our Senate and House Republicans as we move into this election cycle is going to be promoting what we're going to do up in Hartford. That's got to be our focus on the campaign trail. That's going to be our focus in the legislature as we work through session. And so, I mean, really, that's what I'm going to be focusing on. I think that's what all our my Senate colleagues will be focusing on, the Republican Party, as well as my House colleagues, is common sense, practical Republican policies that we're promoting on a daily basis in Hartford, and what we'll be voting for ultimately for our constituents if we're fortunate enough to get reelected in 2024.
Of the two Republicans, Nikki Haley and Donald Trump, who would be better for Connecticut?
Well, I mean, I have not voted. The primaries, I think, coming up here in Connecticut in April. I think probably as of now, I guess I would probably be inclined to support Nikki Haley. But again, you know, I'll be voting for whoever the nominee will be in the general election. But again, I think what it comes down to for my Senate colleagues, what it comes down to for my House colleagues in the Republican Party, is ultimately the actual issues we're going to be voting on in Hartford for our constituency.
We had the GOP chairman on here a couple of weeks ago, Ben Proto, and I asked him if he believed that, because there's a Republican view out there that the election was stolen from Donald Trump and that Joe Biden didn't fairly win. Proto disagrees with that. He says Biden won the election. Who do you think won the election in 2020?
Biden clearly was is the president of the United States. There's no one questioning that. I'm certainly not questioning that.
So he won it fair and square. In your opinion.
There's nothing that would indicate to me that we should be reevaluating whether or not Joe Biden became president of the United States through the election in 2020. He clearly is the president of the United States. Really, what we need to be focusing on is ultimately what we're going to be able to do for our constituents in Hartford. The national issues. Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, 2020 presidential election, those are all things that we have very little to do with in our state. What we need to be promoting is ultimately what we're going to be able to provide our constituents. And what you see in the majority in Hartford, ultimately, I don't think are practical, pragmatic policies for the people of the state. That's what this election is going to be about in 2024.
But the Trump brand seems to have hurt Connecticut Republicans. They have lost seats. We looked at Leora Levy running for the Senate last year, who endorsed Donald Trump, and she was endorsed by him, and she lost badly. And there seems to be a belief that Republicans have to find a new path to win in Connecticut. What is the path to victory here in our state?
Well, I think we just talked about it, is focusing on what we're actually going to be able to vote on. So if you look at what our party promotes, it is logical measures up in Hartford. It is fiscal guardrails. It is asking questions about EV mandates. It is about maintaining local control when it comes down to zoning issues. It's about supporting law enforcement and first responders. And so ultimately what it's going to come down to in this election cycle, I believe, is making sure that message is brought to the voters of this state, and making sure that they're aware of the fact that whatever may happen in D.C. may happen in D.C., but ultimately the reps and the senators that you're going to be voting for on the Republican line stand for these values, many of which you believe in, and they'll be advancing policies which you support in Hartford. And if you can get that message across to voters, particularly in a retail politics perspective, I think we can be very successful.
In just a couple of months, in May, you'll all be back in the campaign trail trying to get reelected. Do you see the Republicans being able to pick up any Senate seats this year?
I am very optimistic. I think that I know that the 12 incumbent senators we have now are incredible advocates for their district. They're incredible campaigners. They do everything they can to get to every single event, to door knock, to phone bank. They're going to do whatever they're going to do, they need to do to get reelected. And I'm certainly going to be there supporting them every step of the way, because the incumbent senators we have in our seats now are incredible advocates for the state of Connecticut and for their constituency. And I think there are also other areas of the state where there could be Republican challenges that would be successful. I think ultimately if we can focus on the issues that we're going to be voting on for our constituents in Hartford, we're going to be very, very successful.
Is it possible for the Republicans to take over in November to win a majority, do you think? Is that plausible?
The numbers are certainly far apart right now. But look, we have to be optimistic, and we weren't that far away when I was in the House. I mean, at one point it was 75 to I think 72. It was maybe a 3, or it could have been as many as 5, but 77 to 72, excuse me. And it was tied 18 to 18 in the Senate. So there's no reason why we can't advance to that level at some point. I have hope in our party. I have hope in both caucuses.
So a quick slogan, if you were not going to endorse saying vote Republican this year, what would it be?
Why to vote Republican?
Why to vote Republican?
Well, my slogan would be, if you believe in fiscal health for the state of Connecticut, if you believe in maintaining smart fiscal policy, and if you believe in smart, common sense policy across the board for our state, you should be voting Republican in 2024. So
Stephen Harding, we can describe him as a McCain, Haley Republican?
Well, I'm not going to throw myself into one loop, but yeah, I like both of them. I've supported both of them in the past, so yeah, if you want to describe me as that, I'll take it.
Are you endorsing Nikki Haley in the Connecticut primary?
Not an endorsement. I'm just saying, as of now, if I had to vote, I'd be voting for her.
Stephen Harding is the new minority leader. I'm sure we're seeing a lot of you this year.
I hope to. Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, best of luck in your new job.
Thank you, sir.
Coming up, etiquette and tipping. What's acceptable? And are restaurants shaming you or guilt-tripping its customers to get a larger percentage of a tip? We'll be right back with that.